Hey, everybody. This is the November edition of Think Global. And on Think Global, what we like to say is the world is our home, where strangers become friends and friends become family. And John, we are in November. Man, I'm just thinking, actually, that next week we're off to Morocco.
I can't wait. I'm so excited. Also, we're in November, and I made a personal rule that I won't wear boots until the first snow, and it snowed last night.
Yes, but it was
Some
more of a
boots.
frost.
No. It was dumping flakes of snow at my house.
All right.
Big flakes of snow.
Well, you live a half mile from me, so I don't know what happened. But anyway.
You didn't look out the window at
All
the
right.
right time.
You got your boots on today. I don't.
But we're going to Morocco.
We're going to Morocco, where it's going to be a lot warmer, and really looking forward to that. A lot going on in November. If your passport country is U.S., we've got Thanksgiving coming up. And for all of us, Christmas is right around the corner. Anyway, hey, folks, we have a special guest on our podcast today. And before we introduce him, we have talked a lot about, on our podcast, a lot about like people and relationships and friendships and, hospitality and engaging people in our lives and in our world, where strangers become friends and friends become family. Mm-hmm. But what we always say is where the world is our home. And we recognize that life is a gift. It's not a guarantee. But for the time being, the world is our home. And today we're going to focus on that part of Think Global, the world that we live in and the fact that it is home. So, John, why don't you, we both know this gentleman. Why don't you introduce him? Because you've been a friend longer than he and I have. Introduce him, and then let's talk about his book.
Yeah, awesome. So I'm excited that my friend Stephen Proctor is with us today. And Stephen and I go back, oh my gosh, close to 20 years.
Yeah.
Almost 20 years. And so he's done a lot with us. He's traveled with you. He's traveled with me. We've been all over the world together. And very recently, I call him Proctor. Everybody calls him Proctor. So if I call him Proctor, that's just normal. But his name is Stephen Proctor. And he recently released a book that, Tim, you have right here. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see that. It's called Wild Wonder, and what nature teaches us about slowing down and living well. So let's welcome our guest, Stephen Proctor, and we're going to talk a little bit about the book. Proctor, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you guys? It's good to see you again.
Yeah, we're doing well. And, man, when I see your face, real quick, I'm reminded you ran into Lynn and I when we were traveling in New Zealand. It was kind of a random event. And we spent a day together on a ferry on an island. We had a great dinner together. You were almost late. You had to run. You ran like the Dickens to get on that ferry because it was the last one of the night going back to Queenstown. Anyway.
Story of my life.
Yeah.
Real quick on that note, I don't know if you've noticed in the book or not. I'm flipping. I've got a copy of it right here. So check this out.
All right.
I've got some friends. We went to Waiheke Island, and I've got some friends on there that I stayed with, and I ended up getting these two shots.
Oh my! So
that is literally about a mile or two down the road from the Italian restaurant that we ate at.
That is super cool. I think that's a shot, I believe, that when you fly, I know you did that not from an airplane, but from your drone. But when you fly in to New Zealand, I believe you actually see some great shots like that. It's just a beautiful place.
It is. It's an amazing, beautiful country, and just I always fellow, photographer friends and people, mutual friends of ours, like Jeremy Stanley, like we've gone and traveled and seen these places. And we always remark, like, the sky is doing things and the land is doing things that it's extra. And it almost looks like you went into Photoshop or Lightroom when you're editing photos and you just boosted the saturation like way too much.
Yeah.
It almost looks fake.
Yeah.
But it's just the way. There's something magical about that place, and its place in the world.
Okay. I'll ask you, and then I'm going to turn this over to John. But how many times have you been to New Zealand?
11.
Oh, okay. I knew it was a lot.
And the 12th trip is being planned right now.
Awesome.
So I'll be going back there in January.
Yeah, it is a beautiful place. Anyway, John, let's talk to Stephen.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, Proctor, you've had a lot of journeys in your career and whatnot. How do you define yourself now? Who are you? What do you do? How would you describe yourself?
Tired. I think just the overarching thing is I'm a visual artist. I create art, and there's and then you break it down into a couple of different mediums. So I'm a landscape cinematographer and aerial photographer, but I'm licensed drone pilot if you want to get technical. But I still do immersive projection. So I do a lot of concert visuals, conferences. Obviously, we've been to Thailand like 8-9 times for conferences and other fundraising events, conferences with people like Beth Moore. And I lived 15 years in Nashville, so there's a lot of touring and doing video production with projection and media presentations. Everything from like helping without the PowerPoints of the presentations, but also using projectors in a way that kind of immerses the entire audience in some type of creative visual experience. So PowerPoint guy, I don't know.
That's good. So, I mean, I've seen you do things with projectors that projectors were never meant to do. It's pretty amazing. We had Stephen in Beijing a number of years ago to help us put on an
big
event. Big celebration for the government. We had government officials from all over the country come, and Stephen and his business partner at the time helped us put on this event, and it was spectacular.
Out of this world.
Yeah,
actually.
So now, fast forward, you're licensed, I think, FAA certified drone pilot. So you started shooting drone photography all over the world, and now you've produced this book. Where did the inspiration for the book come from? Why did you go this route for this book? And then actually take a step back, describe the book for us, and then tell us what made you take that route with the books.
Thank you. So the book is a 9x9 full color photo book. So think of it like a coffee table book. Half of it is photos that sometimes are on one page or they span across 2 pages. But the other half are stories. So it's just not a pretty coffee table book to enjoy the visuals, but there is hopefully some depth to it and some stories and essays and reflections that really focus on the lessons that nature teaches us, or what I should really say is what nature has been teaching me about slowing down, which, as y'all know, like I'm just all over the place, very fast-paced life, especially touring in the music industry. And then, a few years ago, I just had this very strong desire to slow down and reconnect with nature in a more hands-on, immersive way. And so, part of that was, learning to fly drones and learning to shoot my own visuals instead of just downloading stock footage, on a website, and curating, visuals for my live experiences. And so drones really just kind of opened up my world. I've never been considered myself a filmmaker or a professional photographer. I don't have all this gear, with all these lenses and adapters and camera bodies. And, that's maybe one day, but that's just never really been my speed. Because I've just been on the road doing live events all the time. But drones, especially the smaller foldable ones that I can throw in a backpack or carry on with me on the airplane as I'm going to all of these, travels. It's like earlier, it's kind of amazing how projection and visual presentations, in a sense, has taken me all over the world and opened up so many doors. And so I started taking a drone with me to some of these places and tacking on a few days extra to just go film video. And I would snap some photos along the way. Fast forward to March of 22, and a mutual friend of ours, at least John, yours and mine. I don't think you've met him yet, Tim. Paul J. Pastor is a dear friend of mine in the Columbia River Gorge, just outside of Portland, where I live. He's 20 minutes down the river. He's an incredible writer, poet, and an editor that works in the publishing industry and helps. He comes alongside a lot of well-known pastors and authors and speakers to help bring their books to life. And if I name dropped all the names, you just be like, oh, wow, he's working with who? Like, he's just the guy behind the scenes there. So he called me one day and said, we've been talking in our team about a nature gift book, like a devotional book of some sorts with photography. We've been looking at your Instagram feed, and the team we would like to talk to you. Would you be interested in doing a book? We just want to gauge interest. And I did not have this on my bingo card. I didn't try to do a book. I didn't try to write a book. In fact, when he approached me about it, my initial thought was, I want to either get multiple friends to write sections for it, and it be like this community, like I would have asked you, like, hey, tell me about traveling the world and reconnecting to nature in all these places, these landscapes and cultures that you've been to. And then at one point I thought, well, I just want to partner with Paul since he's the writer and I'm the visual guy. But he and the team were like, write a sample chapter. Let's just kind of see what you got. And I wrote a sample chapter. And next thing you know, I wrote a book. So they saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And I said yes. And I'm really glad that I did, because I surprised myself.
Yeah. Well, Stephen, that's a cool story, because there are a lot of folks who there's a lot in them to give and they actually don't know it, and others pull that out. And I think, for us, a reminder to affirm people what they do well, and affirm them so that it brings out the best in them, but also with an awareness. We've got stuff in us that's good.
I was going to say
that can bless.
That's the beauty of friendship and community.
Yeah,
is that you have people around you that pull that out of you. That's amazing.
Yeah, I got a question for you. All right, the book is right in front of me. Wild Wonder. Like, did you have the title first, or did the title come last? And what's behind Wild Wonder? I mean, I get it. It's a book of nature and engaging with it. Wild Wonder. Is there something behind that?
It's something that I wrote early on in the introduction, where I talk about my own experience and my own stories of kind of reconnecting to nature. And touching grass is like a popular phrase that I used. But when I went to Papua New Guinea and started walking around, you weren't supposed to walk around barefoot, much because sanitary reasons, but I, just was able to just reconnect with the earth. I realized that while I had been traveling across the globe, I was rarely touching the earth directly. And so in that, just this phrase jumped out while I was writing this, and I reconnected to this wild wonder of the landscape and myself. And I had other ideas for the book title and the cover, but the publisher came back to me and said, "You've said this phrase, Wild Wonder. We think that would be a good book title." I was like, "Sounds good to me."
Yeah.
But in that, obviously, the landscapes, in a sense, there's one aspect where we're reconnecting to the wild, out in the wild, out of the city, out of our, civilization, infrastructures, and getting out into the wild a little bit. And then there is also the aspect of wonder, which to me and a lot of my friends, have been saying this through the years, but wonder is not an object. I could even say the same with beauty. It's not just an object, but rather it's an internal state of being, and it's a way of seeing the world.
Yeah.
You can look at the sun and see a literal ball of burning gas, or you can look at it and see the potential that it has to give us energy, or you can look at it and write a poem about it, and you can see beyond the literal object of what it is, and you can be filled with wonder, with awe and wonder, and beauty starts to transform you, and it's a very internal thing that happens. And so in that, I wanted to connect to those two and just go, there's wonder that's in us, but there's also this wildness. There's this unexplored wonder that is an invitation to explore, yes, the literal landscapes and these beautiful places around the world, but also the internal landscapes, and to reconnect to the wonder within.
That's cool. I have a thought on that.
Keep going.
No, what I'm thinking about is like, think of the money that's been invested in what people have created, which is great. Like, there are those who love Disney World.
Mm-hmm.
There are those who love seeing I love the beauty of the harbor in Hong Kong and the city and the lights. But there's actually, and it's impressive. But there is something, Stephen, that you're saying, I think that's pretty cool, that there's something about creation that creates wonder beyond what we actually can manufacture. And that I think is a cool thing. And actually, I'm gonna end this podcast with a psalm. But actually, that's what the psalmist would write about over and over and over again. They weren't looking at Disney World. They weren't looking at a cityscape. They were looking at what God made, and it created wonder, which is that's a good reminder for us.
Yeah. Well, on that thought, I think man-made objects are an attempt to recreate the wonder and the awe that we find in nature. So, biggest building in the world to mimic the grandeur of a mountain,
right?
The vastness of some kind of man-made structure to mimic the vastness of what we see in the oceans,
right?
So I think that's true. I think we're trying to recreate what we see in our own wonder and awe from nature through man-made objects, but it just doesn't replace the real thing. Anyway,
that's cool.
That's a bit of a dovetail, but it's true.
Yeah.
Proctor, I want to go back to something you said earlier around the pace of life, and you just fast-paced, always doing stuff. We actually have a nickname for you that we have often called you Proctane, because you run on your own fuel system. Because you do.
I think technically the original one from Joe was Joe Stoll in Thailand, when he walked in and we had Travis Cottrell and the whole group, and I was taking them everywhere, elephants and tigers and whatever, all the things in Chiang Mai. And he walks in and he says, "What up, high Proctane?
Yeah,
like, you
high
running on
Proctane.
high Proctane today?"
Yeah,
like,
high Proctane.
It's a high concentrate.
But because you live life on your own fuel system, that you just run hard, you go fast, you do it. But what you're saying is this project in this book has taught you a lot about slowing down and living well. I'll just turn the title of the book back on you and ask the question: what has nature taught you about slowing down and living well? What have you learned?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm still learning. I have not mastered this at all. I think it's kind of funny. I have a lot to live up to. And as one of my friends told me one time when I was just really struggling and kind of frantic, he he said, you might need to take your own advice, from time to time. Like, so it's a good reminder now. But a few lessons are, nature teaches me to listen. Being in the music industry and having lived in Nashville, I'm back in Nashville now for a trip and getting to see friends and do work. And it's amazing. I love it. But like just downtown Broadway, which is not real life, but like, just another extreme of noise, and sitting in traffic, walking into people's homes or into a sports bar or anywhere where the news or sports, everything is just coming at us from every direction from multiple screens and from our phones. And it's not just audible noise, but it's this visual noise. It's this narrative noise, especially, happy election season, everyone. It's very noisy and chaotic. And it's almost like in a symphony, there's this cacophony and there's this dissonance that is just out of tune and driving me crazy. And so when I go out into the wild and I experience the stillness of a forest and I hear the bird song and I start to attune my ears to the slowness of the soundtrack of nature and all of its frequencies, as well as even visually, not looking at my phone as much, not looking at screens. My job involves screens and it will continue to. We're on screens right now. They're not bad, but we need to have better boundaries in a relationship with it. I know that I do because tech and digital burnout is a real thing, and it affects our sleep. It affects our mental health. It affects our spirits. It forms us. Just like going to church, worship, prayer, liturgy, sermons. These are the liturgies of our faith form us into how we believe and how we live. And I think that there's liturgies surrounding us all the time in our homes, in the environments that we live in, the type of work environment we create, and it is always forming us. So I wanted to switch gears. In 2018, I moved out to the Pacific Northwest, and it's a very long saga and story, but I eventually was able to buy an acre in a small forest in a small town and build my small little tiny house cabin. Obviously I'm still running on Proctane. I take things to the extreme, but I wanted to just extremely slow down and just counterbalance the other part of my life. And so the just being out in nature, seeing the deer walk by very slowly and learning to slow down that way. The deer have taught me so much about what it means to be gentle and quiet and slow. And then just going up into the mountains, like the photo, behind surrounding us right now, Mount Baker in Washington State. When you go to some of these places far, far away from the city, you experience a silence that is rarely heard. And then you start to get perspective on the landscape. And it's much like when the astronauts go into space and they experience this amazing gift called the overview effect, where they see Earth from a perspective rarely seen, and all politics and culture wars and religious corruption and all the beautiful things too, but like nation state borders, wars, just all of it disappears. You don't see it anymore, and you just see the simple, pure beauty of our Earth as one place that we live, our neighborhood, our home, and all the other stuff fades away. And so it's this existential shift that astronauts will sometimes get, and it changes their way of seeing humanity and seeing the planet, and in very different ways too. They have different reactions to it. I even write about when William Shatner went to space. Captain Kirk from Star Trek got to go up in orbit for a little 4 minutes or whatever, but still he got that effect, and he came back and was, well, I quote him in the book so you can read it, but he had a very interesting, unexpected experience. And so I think even just perspective, being out in nature, it causes you to not just go and look and enjoy and snap a bunch of photos or fly the drone or whatever. We're constantly trying to create content for our social media feeds and put ourselves in the center of it all. And like, look at us and look at this and look where I am. And I've learned it a lot of times, just put the phone away. Maybe I'm in a beautiful place and I don't get the drone out at all. And I just let the place be for me and to gain perspective and to just be present in the moment. And that's a very that is an experience that very much slows you down and lets you be present with your own thoughts.
Yeah. That's good. And I'll tell you, most of us need that advice, what it means to slow down. One of the quotes I think from your book is, wonder is the lens through which we see the world as God intended. And I think social media, all of the devices, we miss what God intended because we are taken up with that which is superficial, that which is created by us to make us look good. And it seems like what you've done is said, take a look at nature. God really is amazing. Like you've kind of turned it on its head that through the beauty of nature, we're reminded God is incredible. And the attention is on him rather than social media that tends to be attention on me. And trying to create, something superficial about ourselves to get another like or whatever. Anyway, I love that. That's actually, I think that's what you're saying. Wonder takes us back to what God has done and what he intended.
It really does. Like there's another quote in the book, the Andy Goldsworthy, incredible artist that creates installations out in nature with the elements of creation. And he says that, we are nature. Nature is not something separate from us. And when we say we've lost our connection to nature, we've lost our connection to ourselves. And then you connect that to, I like to pair things like independent thoughts and put them together. So I go, oh, well, that connects to the Psalms, the psalmist of, all creation is declaring the glory of God. We are creation as well. We are declaring the glory of God, but so are the rocks. So are the stars. So is the mountain. So is the river. So is the quiet forest floor and all of the mysteries and miracles that are happening in the hidden shadows. Everything is declaring the glory of God. And if the words of the psalmist are true, what are the declarations of that glory? What might glory sound like? Let's tune in. Let's attune our ears and listen to the frequencies of pink noise. What you can get scientific with it. I love that. I love nerding out a little bit, but also there's science and studies done about how even those frequencies and sounds of nature affect our body, give us the positive effect and help reduce anxiety and stress, and is a healing balm to our burnt out souls, even on a physiological, medical level. But also like, what might glory look and sound like? And you start to see earth from, as angels might see creation. You see it from above and you get this heavenly perspective looking down. We travel so much. And so I don't know if you're a window seat person or not. I'm an exit row window seat person if I can pull it off. I put in this instrumental music and I just start looking out unless I'm super tired and fall asleep. I look out the window, and especially flying out of the Pacific Northwest or Colorado, and you see the mountains and you're flying over these vast landscapes and you just kind of get lost in the patterns. And I don't know, I truly believe we are living on a massive piece of art. And it's this generative art piece that's just continually unfolding. And I think most people in this world would be surprised by all the fascinating things that the earth has done. And for many of us to not just connect to the beauty and the wonder of it all, but to connect to the creator behind the creation. Right. And to, so many of us, especially of us in evangelical spaces, not to get in the weeds much, but like, we know God is Savior, and we connect to God as our Savior. But how often do we connect to God as our creator and as this creative artist that has made it all and is continuing to create everything before our very eyes?
Yeah, I love that. As people of faith, we believe that from the earth, from the dust, we were created. So there's this natural that's even the scriptures say from dust we came, from dust we shall return. There's this connection, and one of the things in the West that has happened is that we move from home to home to home, and we really don't have a sense of place, of belonging. In other parts of the world, they're tied to generations on the same piece of land. There's a connection to where their feet actually walk. And I think what's cool about your book is that it connects us back to the earth as our home, and it connects us back to a world that God created, and it connects us back then to the beauty of his genius and his awesome creativity. And it does lead back to then the title of your book, Wild Wonder. It's we step back, and in our hearts, in our minds, through our eyes, through our sense of touch, through our sense of hearing, we're struck with the beauty and the wonder and the awe of God. And that's a good reminder for us, especially when we are surrounded with so many distractions, from what's on media to what's coming up, what's behind us, the next trip, whatever, we're distracted. And I appreciate your perspective on stopping long enough to appreciate the wonder of it all. Hey, can we ask a fun question?
Thank you.
Yeah, ask a fun question.
I mean, that's great. That's deep stuff, man.
I love it.
That was so really good. Keep
That's
talking.
good. But I would ask you this, most fun place to travel, where you just kick back and say, I am so glad to be back here again.
Oh, that's a really, really hard one. Oh boy. My top answer is New Zealand. It just that country is just not just the landscape, but the people there.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm part Kiwi.
Yeah.
And so when I look out the window, when we're coming into Auckland, just like we were talking about earlier, I was just like, I'm back.
Yeah.
I'm back. This is amazing. But I've often had those experiences in other places too. There's so much history, especially with us in Thailand and in Chiang Mai. If I land in Chiang Mai, I will have that feeling of I'm back.
Yeah.
I have had that feeling in Hong Kong as well, not just out in the beautiful wild, but in the Mecca of crazy city, and everything. But yeah, New Zealand has to be my top place.
And I totally get that. And my wife would, a good friend of yours, Lynn, would agree with you. That's one of the highlights of our life was the 2 weeks we spent in New Zealand, running into you there. Hey, you know what? I think actually what you said is a great segue to us unless you may have some other things, John, but a good segue for us. You said something very significant, and that is, you said New Zealand. That's not the significant part. What you said was the people of New Zealand. You tied it together. And there's something incredible about God's creation and the people who are a part of it, because we're a part of his creation. And really, take all of this creation and remove humanity. And what do you have? Well, you got the sun. Maybe you got Mars. I don't know. But there's something about a people that God created, and the grand masterpiece of it was Adam and Eve and people. And there's something beautiful about that actually you did it by saying, New Zealand, you're part Kiwi, and it's the people. And that's actually what this podcast is all about, is that there is a connection between this world being our home and strangers who become friends, and friends who become family. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's so easy, as dealing with going to these far off countries and working with different cultures. There's this, it's all in the posture to me. People always ask, how do you know all these people? How do you get to go to all these places? And I can go back in hindsight and connect the dots, but I think really it's, some of us here in Nashville were even talking about this, just how we do life, especially in this highly commoditized industry where there's a lot of agenda and there's a lot of business. Not that that's wrong, but there can be a over commoditization of things. And so just where everything is transactional.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think of this posture that I learned, especially with communion, when we approach the Lord's table, is that, are you coming to take communion or take? Is that your posture? Or are you coming to receive?
Mm-hmm.
And I think when I go to these places, it's so often, especially when we're on vacation, and yes, you're in a posture of needing to receive, and you kind of have to go do that yourself. But it's so easy to just go off to these beautiful places and just want to extract your experience from that place and to take instead of receiving. And you receive by connecting to the people there, in a way of like, it's this humility. There's so many of these countries and these cultures that hospitality is so huge to them.
Yeah.
And we in the West, and especially in America, can learn a lot from that. The people of New Zealand have taught me, how they see the land as sacred and how it connects to their heritage and their culture, and the proverbs that they have that are connected. Like, there's talk about learning lessons from nature and seeing metaphors in trees and forests. Like, the Maori people have it down. Native Americans have it down. The ancient Celtic world in Ireland has it down. Like, there's just so many these tribal groups that are connected to the land. It's one and the same. And nature, again, we are nature. The people are part of nature, and the people are what have helped me open my eyes and to see the land and to use different language. And so I try my best, and I fail sometimes, many times, but to have a posture of receiving rather than taking. A friend of mine from Nashville, Ian Cron, like 10, 12 years ago in a retreat, when he was talking through this concept that really stuck with me, he said, and this connects to Adam and Eve, you just said to him, this is what went wrong in the Garden of Eden. That posture we took, we were trying to take from God, and that was what what sin basically is, as opposed to receiving. And so I think that what went wrong in the garden is made right at the Lord's table.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I appreciate that, man. That's good stuff. And hey, tell us when your next book comes out, because we'll have you back, and and we're going to wrap this up. It's always fun to connect with you. It's great to share friendship with you and travel with you like we've had a chance to do through the years. But John's going to talk real quick before we close out here.
Yeah.
About an opportunity.
Yeah, perfect. So, well, first of all, Proctor, tell us where we can find you on the interwebs. I know you're everywhere. Where's the best place for people to find you and the book?
The best place is going to be, well, there's three things. One is going to be Instagram. That's my main social media of choice. So I'm at @Proctor, Proctor, but S for Stephen is where I do most of my posting. And you can watch me feed the deer and, talk to them in my forest like a crazy person.
That's the main thing I do. I just look at your Instagram. I get peace in my heart watching you feed your deer every single day.
Everyone's living vicariously through me and amazing. The deer and everything. But to get the book, thanks to you, I can just tell you, wildwonderbook.com. Wildwonderbook.com is going to do a lot of things. It's going to just take you directly to where you can learn more about the book, and you can see links of retailers of your choice, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, Target. It's kind of crazy that it's everywhere, but you can go there. But what that's also doing is redirecting you to my artist portfolio website, which is proctor.com, but it's spelled kind of weird, so you don't have to worry about it. Just go to wildwonderbook.com and you can see more work of mine and commissions that I've done with classical musicians and artists. I also have a Substack that is under the name Wild Wonder as well. You can find a link to that on my website. And so every so often when I have I do some photography, but my main love is taking cinematic footage from my drone and matching it with beautiful music. And I work in collaboration with a lot of beautiful, wonderful artists. So you can, and when a new one releases, like I just created a video this last weekend in collaboration with Beth Moore for her Living Proof Live conference. And it's all based on the Psalms. And I lift my eyes up to the hills. And she was like, buddy, like mountain footage, like, I know you've got it. Go, do this. You use these Psalms and everything. So soon, in a couple of days, I will share that video through my Substack. So bringing a little bit of Wild Wonder to your inbox from time to time as well. So
I love it. Okay,
cool.
So follow Proctor on Instagram, @Proctor, and go to wildwonderbook.com to find the book. And because this is the November episode, we did this on purpose because we're heading into Christmas season. We want people to pick up this book going into Christmas, buy it as a gift for somebody, buy it as a gift for yourself. It's a great coffee table book. But I'm going to go one step further. This was supposed to be a surprise for Tim, but he heard me talking about this when he walked in the room before we recorded. I'm going to give away 5 copies of this book. So for the listeners, what we want you to do is go follow the podcast Instagram, thinkglobal.podcast. Go follow us on Instagram and leave a comment, write Wild Wonder in the comment section, and we will pick 5 people to give away a copy of the book to. I'm excited about that. That's a lot of fun. I want people to get this in their hands.
So I have a question, how are you going to make the choice of 5?
I'm just going to pick my 5 favorites.
Okay.
No, I'm going to...
based on a comment? Based just on...
They're going to comment Wild Wonder, so we know that they want the book.
Yes.
And then I'm going to pick...
Perfect. So it's going to be random.
Random 5.
Awesome.
So go for it. It's not the first 5, it's random 5. So go for it. Pick.
All right. That's what
they
I
have
wanted
these
to know.
mechanisms online too, where you can just punch something in and it raffles you.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I know how these things work.
Yeah.
Comment Wild Wonder on our Instagram, thinkglobal.podcast, and we will pick 5 people to get a copy of the book. Okay.
Perfect.
Tim, wrap us up.
All right, Stephen, thank you for your time with us, man. We appreciate you. We appreciate your friendship. We appreciate our travels with you. We look forward to going more places together in the future. I'm going to end with a psalm. This was the verse of the day that popped up in my email. And I thought, how cool is it that we're talking about nature and the beauty of nature and what nature reminds us of. And by the way, I would challenge our listeners, read the Psalms, see how many times there's a reference to nature. Read the Word. I mean, it is amazing references to the land, to the place of God's creation. And even when the Lord walked planet Earth, if you don't do it, the rocks will cry out. I mean, it's pretty powerful. So thanks for a good visual reminder of this. But this comes from Psalm 8, 3-4. And maybe this is something someone out there needs today. But it is this. The psalmist writes, when I look at your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars, which you have set in place, like God, you did that. The question is this: what is man that you are mindful of him, and the Son of Man that you care for him? And the beauty of that psalm is that when you look at nature, we feel very small, but God came for us, the individual. And that shows us our place in all of creation, highly valued by God and treasured by God, loved by God. And the psalmist simply says, when I look at this creation, I wonder, who am I that you would love me? And the answer we find in the Son who came. And that's a great truth. All right, man, this has been a good time together. John will be back in December. This is Think Global, and on Think Global, today we have emphasized that the world is our home. And in this world, strangers become friends and friends become family. You guys have a great November. We'll be back with you in December. Thanks again, Stephen. We are out of here.